is Elizabeth Emery, the host of Off the Front, about all things women's cycling. I'm coming to you from the WiSP Sports Radio. Today's guest is Martina Brimmer, one of the founders of Swift Industries, a bicycle bag company in Seattle, Washington. Now, I know that the fact that they're made and designed in Seattle is really important to you. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your company and about how it's made in Seattle?
Our company began just shy of 10 years ago. January 1st of 2018 will mark our 10-year anniversary.
I had no idea it was that old.
Yeah. And I'll tell you a little bit about our biography as a company. So I had been working as an industrial sewer, making messenger bags here in Seattle, and was really, really very, very engaged with the cycling community here in Seattle. And I started to make panniers for myself because we decided to go exploring and bike camping, which at the time hadn't really been on our radar a whole ton, but we started to want to get out of the city. My husband and I, who we run the business together, he has been in the Northwest forever, and he's super active and outdoorsy, and it was his idea, and we decided to go on a bike tour. We actually had gone on a tour a couple years before we started the company, and that was from his doorstep in Seattle to my doorstep in San Francisco.
Oh, fun.
So we went down the Pacific coast, and that was an incredible experience for us. And I just had my road bike that I think I had rack mounts welded onto it. It was an old steel racing bike. And just had put on a rack and put on some panniers, and we went. And it was absolutely like the least adequate bicycle. It's not designed to carry a load, but I was young and my body could handle it and didn't know any different. And, we were like 21 at the time, 20 at the time. And so we went for it, and it was so, so fun. And really, really liberating. It felt like a very different pace to life. And while we had loved backpacking previously and done a lot of backpacking, it kind of picked up the pace a little bit more. And it was much slower than car camping and road trips in a car. So you could have like this really different sensory experience, both in like the communities you pass through, social experiences, definitely awareness of weather and ecology and the environmental systems you move through. It's just it's altogether a really incredible sensory experience to be on bike tour.
Did you de-tech? I mean, that was 10 years ago, so we were less technified, but...
Yeah, so Jason and I were absolute Luddites at the time. And I didn't even have a cell phone. I got my first cell phone, I think 3 years into owning this business.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we were totally detached. We were moving totally analog. And we relied on the incredible resources from Adventure Cycling Association. They make amazing paper maps. And we used them in conjunction with gazetteers and just the road maps that you get at a gas station. And we would kind of plot it out day by day. Going down the coast was a really great intro because there's kind of one way to do it.
Right.
And
you always know which direction you're going.
Yeah, exactly. But now with digital resources, especially mapping resources, I would actually say that has enhanced my touring and bike camping experience because we were basically riding the highway almost the entirety of the route down. And now I have maybe just a lot more experience in route finding And I would do everything to avoid that and look for all of the roads that say, Old Highway or Old Miller Road,
right.
And those roads are usually stunning and much, much quieter.
Sure.
But that first tour, we just kind of like got on the highway and essentially did a road trip on bikes. And the reason I mention that is because that's actually kind of changed for us now. We've leaned a little bit more towards remote bike touring and bike camping, and have looked for like gravel roads and a little bit more wilderness experience. And in that way, it feels a lot less than a car road trip converted to bicycles. It's a much more of an adventure experience for us now.
Mm-hmm. And do you try to detect now? I mean, I know you're using tech for the maps, but do you try to take yourself away from email and things like that?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, often in remote areas, we don't even get that stuff.
Right, no choice.
Which is great. But yeah, I think it's really critical. That sensory experience that I mentioned earlier, I think, is, of course, most poignant when you're there in the moment. And, it is a little tough having a business and feeling like especially with social media, our lives are so embedded in our business passion, in that like we make gear for ourselves in a lot of ways. Like we make gear that we use a ton, and that's really what drives us. And so we're out adventuring a lot and out riding a ton. And so then it's a little hard not to blur the lines of like jumping on Instagram. So honestly, email is easier for me to avoid, but Instagram is like a lot harder for me to not post that gorgeous picture of the sunrise on that lake, in a pristine area with my bike set in front of me.
Well, I want to get back to your story of the business, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that you had been an industrial sewer, because on your website, you make it sound so easy, like, oh, I woke up and decided to design bags, which now I know is not true.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's really interesting. I was not trained in any professional capacity as an industrial seamstress. I was raised in a household where almost every medium for creativity was like really easy to grab and easy to access. So fiber arts were a really big part of my upbringing. A lot of knitting, even spinning and weaving and dyeing. I sewed all of my dolls' clothes and all of those things. But really, like, I grew up as a hobbyist with a knack for pulling materials together and making them three-dimensional. And so it wasn't particularly on my radar to become an industrial seamstress. However, when I moved to Seattle, I needed a job, and I found this messenger bag company. And because it was making bicycle bags, it was kind of that fusion of two things that I was just really intuitively excited about.
Sure.
And so I spent a little over a year working as an industrial sewer in a fairly unconventional setting, in that, when we think of factory sewing, we think of a line of operation and really kind of these like compressed tasks. You only do like 5 sequences at a time, and then the bag moves along the line. And in this particular setting, we were making each bag from start to finish. There was one cutter who would do the cutting for the entire team, and then we would essentially go down the custom queue or down the stock queue and pull a bag that had been bundled and make it from start to finish. And so I got really, really good at sequences that could last up to 2 or 3 hours. And I loved it. I definitely have a tendency towards self-competition. I drive myself in general, and I love watching a clock and trying to get my minutes down, whether that's like, running or sewing, it turns out.
Did you make up that term, self-competition? I love it.
I guess so. It just came to mind. I don't even know. I don't know if there's a more conventional or a real term for that. I just feel like it's really easy for me to compete against a clock. And I know that that's not the case for everyone, and I think that was one of the things that made me a really good production sewer. And it didn't take long for me to pick it up and really, really enjoy it. And I actually did not mind the repetition of production sewing, which is also quite unique, we've found, as we've worked to hire people and build our company over the years. For the most part, creatives do not like monotonous work or repetitive work. So I'm definitely an odd bird.
I'm in the same camp. I love that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really interesting. It's like this kind of meditative place where I have to be absolutely precise, and we are really driven to hone our quality. Over the 10 years, we've never, ever laxed on our quality. And so in that repetition, the skill is both kind of widening your gaze and letting yourself kind of not space out, but, think about life and things. And at the same time, watch every stitch and how linear it is and how straight and correct. And so it's an interesting headspace to be in.
Right.
Yeah. To continue the story, I do think that working for this messenger bag company really influenced how I started my company, in that I had loved sewing bags from start to finish so much that it didn't really, I carried that forward. And the first 2 years of Swift Industries, I was also working alone. And so basically what happened was that the company I was working for decided to close, and I purchased my industrial sewing machine and some fabric from them. And I just became a kind of like a hobby business and worked from home and had another job and loved both things. They complemented each other really, really nicely. And oh man, we were like really young in punk rock at the time. And so I would go to punk shows all over the US. And when I was at these shows in Brooklyn or in Philly, I would have these little hand-drawn flyers that I would photocopy and almost like a wristband, put them onto bicycle handlebars. And it just said bicycle bags, handmade start to finish. And it had our blog or, our URL written on it.
Wow, that's such a great idea.
I love marketing, and I love just like really fun ways to get our name out there and really unconventional ways. And some things work and some don't, but I'm like usually just so delighted that, for the most part, it doesn't matter a ton. But yeah, we would put these tags on bicycles, and then we would get orders from those areas.
Wow.
And I'd just be like, what is going on? And
there must have been a need.
There was a need. There was totally a need. And, it was close to the recession. Young urban folks especially were like, bikes were the craze, coming out of kind of like the urban fixed gear scene and the messenger scene. And we were really tuned in to this evolution that was starting, that was getting more into getting further out of the city. And at first that didn't necessarily mean long distance bike touring, but there was kind of this whisper of like, hey, like what happens outside of the city? What if we go on long day rides, which we hadn't previously done? And so we started doing longer rides, 60, 70, 80-mile rides. And then we started to hear about randoneering, which was really pushed our limits and got us further and further. And bike camping kind of really naturally kind of piled onto that too. I think there was also this like cultural transition at the time, cross blew up. And all of a sudden, all of our friends who had been riding single speed and fixed gears were getting cross bikes with knobby tires. And so that also started to change. Like all of a sudden people were willing to get dirty and muddy. And I think it just like, it was a really cool evolution. And we had started making bags that were really, and talking more about bike camping. And there was definitely a stirring in the scene, and we clearly weren't the only ones talking about it. The culture was changing, and we kind of just, because we were so embedded in it, we just kind of responded to it really organically, and it was awesome. I was working part-time at a local school, and it was so wonderful because I had this great mix of social time with the kids and being on a campus, and then going home and digging then into like very quiet work and very solitary work. And that balance was great for me. Right. And it was actually maybe 2 years in, I got summoned for jury duty. And I got so excited to leave the house and go into a quote unquote formal setting. And I looked around and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I need to work away from home.
Yeah, if jury duty is getting you that excited.
Yeah, it was really funny. And that's when we moved the business out of our home into an amazing building that was kind of a small business community. A lot of artists and makers were in that building. And that's when we hired our first employee. And I had a part-time job. I think we had 2 part-time, if not full-time employees before I started even like really formally paying myself at Swift and quit my job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That would have been a big transition.
Yeah, it was pretty scary and very exciting.
Yeah.
And then, not long after that, business just kept growing and kept ramping up. And my husband, who works at a bike shop, has been a wrench basically since he was like 18. He was basically coming in after hours and pulling a lot of weight. And we were just like, man, like clearly we need more help. And so then he came on. And that was another huge milestone for us, was when all of a sudden, like our household economy then was totally reliant on this business.
Sure. When was that?
Good question. I'm so bad with dates. I think that it has been 3 years.
Got it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I noticed from your website is you have a really strong business philosophy that you've stuck with the entire time.
Yeah, that's right. So previous to sewing, I was actually studying small-scale agriculture. And small-scale agriculture is very philosophically based. And I think that's really what attracted me to it. Sustainable agriculture, organic agriculture, all of these, that route in food production has to be kind of like really ideologically based in a lot of ways. And so small scale business, locally owned businesses, those are all really, really interesting to me in terms of keeping economies diverse and keeping them really vibrant. I see diversified economies as much like ecological environments where, the more diversity that's there, the less likely it's going to fail because the system is less reliant on one particular industry or type of business or scale of business. And so small business has always been really exciting to me because of what it brings to communities and to community economies.
Right.
So we really committed to produce all of our bags in-house and to grow very organically so that we could keep it under our roof. And that's actually changing now, which is a really interesting shift for us. And we just can't keep up with demand, which is from the outside really exciting. And from the inside, it's really, really challenging.
Right. I bet.
So we're starting to work with Seattle-based cut and sew operations, and we're so excited to see that relationship develop, and we feel so good about it.
What is that?
Yeah, so a cut and sew is basically like the industry term for a small factory, and the scale kind of can vary. We work currently with an awesome family-owned and operated company here in Seattle that has anywhere between 9 and 15 sewers. So pretty small. We may not be doing everything in-house anymore, but we're still looking very locally.
Yeah.
And are really excited. Again, the 12 people who make our bags now elsewhere, we're so excited to be supporting their livelihood and their skill. So we're really excited to keep the custom bags and special projects and maybe even limited edition products as our in-house lines, and then have our stock coming in from these other companies right here in the Seattle area.
Nice. And let's talk fabric, because you also design fabric or recently designed a new waterproof cotton.
Yeah, so that project was really awesome. And I should say we didn't design it, but we had a lot of clout in it. We really pushed for it. So we worked with a U.S.-based company, a textile company, who has historically started off as a sailcloth company and technical sailing materials. And that was a long time ago. They've been around forever.
Who is it?
It's Dimension Polyant. Mm-hmm. And they still mill on the eastern seaboard. So they're producing in the U.S. And in the early 90s, I think, when technical designers for outdoor gear were looking for the most durable fabrics, somebody had the bright idea to look at sails, because, just the rigor and duress that sailcloth has to go through is unbelievable. It's really cool. Dimension Polyant is a small enough company that I think that they were really agile and very responsive, and started to make very subtle changes to their sailcloth to make it a pack cloth for backpacking bags and outdoor gear. So they helped innovate a lot of fabric in the outdoor industry. And recently, they came to us with the proposal of a waterproof canvas.
That's awesome.
And we, one of our tokens aesthetically is that we really take very classical designs and bags that have been on, essentially bag shapes and designs that have been on bikes for 100 years. And we have applied new and technical fabrics to those designs. So instead of canvas and leather, we work a lot with corduras and pack cloths and sil nylons. And so we kind of bring this kind of sassy, modern, colorful touch to these traditional designs. And then we were really intrigued by a little bit of a swap of narrative. What does it look like if we bring those designs back to the words canvas, but the canvas itself is a much more technical performance fabric? So when Dimension Polyant mentioned that fabric, we got so excited.
Right. Have you started sewing that fabric yet?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. We just released a line called the Horizon line. We felt like it was just, the timing too was so beautiful because we are quite sentimental about our 10-year anniversary. And it just felt like this fabric kind of feels like a really lovely ode to what we've accomplished. And it sums up our company so well. So we released the Horizon line early this fall and are bringing just such beautiful bags to our lineup with that canvas. So we're so excited about it.
Nice. You also have a very beautiful store.
We do. Yeah. So, the store is awesome. And that has also just, in stride with our whole company narrative, it's just been, again, like a really organic process. So what happened was that, we offer customization. Folks can select their colors for bags, and we build their bags. And that has been one of our signatures since the beginning. But one of the things that was really apparent was that, a screen, a monitor, just doesn't show color very accurately. So we had more and more requests from our customers to come in to see the fabrics. And then as people would trickle in to do their custom ordering, usually that came hand in hand with questions about racks, questions about bicycles, and questions about routes, because folks were seeing that we were riding a ton. And it was becoming fairly disruptive to our sewing studio. And it was all in that space. There was no store.
Right.
And then we thought, oh man, maybe there's something to this. So we carved out a more formal space and we opened up a showroom. And it was awesome. Folks came through. Folks on bike tour would come through. We had maps set out. We still do. And just had a much more, a really lovely space for people to come in and actually touch and feel the products and speak with somebody about compatibility with their bicycles or different features that they wanted to select on their bags. One of the awesome things that gets paired with that is that we do tons of events through our store. And so it's a really amazing social experience for our company too.
Like what kind of events?
Oh man. So that's also a long lineup, but, last year we highlighted some women trans femme happy hours just to get the ladies and female identified people in our community together to talk about routes and bikes and geek out a ton, and just to create like an open space, which is so fun.
Have you been able to encourage more women to ride? Or do you find that that's even an issue?
Of course it's an issue. Of course it's an issue. It's so interesting. One of the words that so many people use about our company is that we are so inclusive. And, when you're in it and it's kind of just a social inclination, it's hard to see that. But when we hear that time and time again, we don't think of ourselves as exclusive, but it's just remarkable to hear so many people say, oh my gosh, it is so awesome what you guys have built and that it is so inclusive. And that I think is testament to seeing all sorts of different people coming into our space and feeling like we offer resources in a way that's super accessible. And we totally encourage ladies to ride. And I think that because this is basically a female-run company, that also drops those barriers.
Sure.
You know, it's I mean, folks come in, they see myself and a lot of our female staff riding a ton. And I think then it's just kind of like you walk into a space that has a lot of women in it, and that just sets a tone.
Right.
Rather than walking into a space that is male dominated with even just their staff, that sends a very subtle message that it's kind of like, oh, there's only guys in this space. Am I not cut out to be in this space? Is this something that's kind of not for me? And of course, like, it's 2018. I would love to think that we're above that, but those subtle messages they really run deep.
They do, and they're very strong. Yeah.
They're very strong.
What do you think that's the biggest barrier for women riding?
Oh gosh,
or maybe
such good questions.
Yeah, what are the barriers preventing more women from riding? Yeah,
I feel a little bit ill-equipped to speak to this. I guess from observation, it does feel like if there were more ladies on staff and more female resources, I think that women would have generally a much easier time approaching something that feels like uncharted territory.
Right.
I think when I say I'm ill-equipped to say this, it's not that I don't have a lot of experiences around sexism and male dominance in this industry. I'm deeply embedded in it, but I also I'm a total tomboy, and I in a lot of ways, I've just kind of hurled myself into a lot of situations in life that are male dominated, and I kind of just also relished that to a degree,
Right. Well, one of the reasons I'm asking is because somebody recently presented fear as being what kept women from cycling, and I feel ill-equipped because cycling never has seemed something scary, but I've been riding since I was 4 or whatever. So again, I'm ill-equipped to talk about that.
Yeah. So, and I think that's a really great one. I actually, I kind of bit my tongue just now on the topic of fear, because I hate this notion that women are generally more timid. That's something that I want to really reframe in our society. But I would say I'm also not a fearful person, regarding cycling. I love high speed. I actually get a lot out of riding in traffic. It's something that's very physical and cerebral at the same time. And I just really enjoy that. And so urban cycling in that way isn't intimidating to me. I guess I have an assertive personality, and so taking a lane or yelling at a driver doesn't, I don't know, I guess that comes kind of naturally, for better or worse. But I do hear that often. I hear, wow, I cannot believe you ride a bike. I would be so scared of the cars, or so afraid of crashing, or, ...
Right.
I also feel like I have a lot of conversations with friends, lady friends. We often lament that bicycle design just doesn't really cut it for us. there is something about the geometry of stock bikes that sometimes I think because our physique is different and our proportions and dimensions are different, that I feel like we kind of get the short end of the stick in terms of the nimbleness and playfulness that can be experienced on a bike because of geometry and design, because we're often overlooked.
I think that's so fun. I've been thinking about this so much because I'm 5'4", which puts me right on the cusp that like I can have a regular normal bike, but I have a feeling that it's not as good as it could be.
Yeah, and I am 6 foot tall.
Oh.
and have like the shortest arms in the entire world and the longest femurs in the entire world. And so my bicycle, I mean, anyone who's listening can look on Instagram and they'll see just from the geometry of a custom bike that I had built, they would be able to say, oh yeah, her femurs are long and her arms are short. I see that in the proportions of that bike. And it was really when I got a custom bike and kind of committed to that I had a bike that it accelerates under my strength because the proportions are correct. And so, you know, I do think that especially like entry-level female riders are usually put on bicycles that are, well, certainly inexpensive as they should be for an entry-level experience, but maybe even also kind of compromising of a really fun, kind of a joyride, right? They're usually upright, perhaps I don't know, less comfortable maybe. Right. So that doesn't, if your bum hurts a ton and if you're just not well fit to your bike, that's not exactly encouraging of taking the next step.
Well, it's also not confidence building if if your bike isn't handling well.
Totally.
You've just cost me a lot of money.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But, you know, companies ought to be jumping on that. You know, we know.
Oh, my God, I agree with you.
Women are the ones who purchase most things in the family, right? And we are a really vital part of this economy. We should not be overlooked. We have money to spend. We want experiences and products that are elevated and wonderful and joyful. Like, why not produce for us as a marketplace, you know? And I'm not talking about pink bikes. You know?
No pink bikes.
That's done.
Yeah.
That's insulting. You know, this was a really circuitous conversation. I hope that's okay. It was so fun.
Oh, it was great. I really appreciate
dabbling on all of these different themes. So
it's great. It's absolutely great. And I really do want to schedule something for when you launch your 2018 designs. And
yeah, you got it.
Thank you very much.
Of course, Elizabeth. Thanks for the opportunity. So fun.
Off the Front can be found at wisports.com and on WiSP Sports Radio, which is available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Play for download to your podcast player. With over 700 episodes across 30 unique shows and a global audience of 1.5 million, WiSP Sports Radio is the world's largest network of podcasts for women's sports. We are also on all the social media channels at WiSP Sports. And if you'd like to drop us a line with suggestions, comments, or questions, email at info@wisports.com. For more of me, Elizabeth Emery, listen to my other podcast, Hear Her Sports, available on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and anywhere you listen to podcasts, and also at hearhersports.com. Every other week, I talk to exceptional female athletes in a wide range of sports. Find me also on social media at Hear Her Sports. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll be back next month with another episode of Off the Front.